Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast. Now, it is always a real honour and a pleasure to welcome back brilliant guests. And today, I have the pleasure of bringing Bryan Stallings back to the podcast for a second time. Bryan is the Chief Evangelist at Lucid Software, a company at the forefront of visual collaboration and Agile transformation. But before we get started today, quick shout out to Bryan's son. I hope you're tuning in all the way from Park City, Utah today. A big hello to you, my friend. But in today's episode, we're going to be diving into the topic that every business struggles with, but often overlooks. That's right, miscommunication, inefficiency, and the hidden costs of unclear project requirements and unproductive meetings. Now, Lucid Software's latest research reveals some pretty staggering numbers. 41% of workers say it takes up to 3 hours just to make a single decision due to those unproductive meetings, while countless hours are also wasted redoing work caused by scope changes and misalignment. So, what is the solution to this age-old problem? Bryan believes agile thinking and visual collaboration can dramatically improve workplace efficiency. And yet, many companies are still resistant to change. So today we're going to unpack why that is, how organisations can gradually adopt agile practices without disrupting their teams, and why businesses need to be moving beyond traditional working behaviours to stay competitive. So, quick question before we begin. Are outdated ways of working holding you or your business back? How can you and your teams better collaborate without drowning in meetings and miscommunication? Well, let's get Bryan back onto the podcast to talk about that right now. Massive warm welcome back to the show, Bryan. For anyone that missed our last conversation, can you just remind everyone listening with a little about who you are and what you do?
Hi, everybody. I'm Bryan Stallings. I'm the Chief Evangelist at Lucid Software. We're the makers of Lucid Spark and Lucid Chart. In my role, I help our customers embrace visual collaboration and adapt how they work so that they can build their future faster. I also ensure that their voices and their needs help shape Lucid's direction in fostering agility and collaboration and innovation. And I think we're talking today because I've been part of the Agile product development community since 2003. And in that time, I've had the privilege to help teams discover practices that create better alignment, transparency, and adaptability in their work. And on a personal note, we talked about this last time. I'm the father of 4. And in our previous conversation, we talked about how I'm committed to advocating for neurodivergent individuals in both educational and professional settings.
Yeah, I remember that side in particular of our conversation, why it was so important to you. And I do urge anyone listening that has not heard that to go back and check that out. But today, one of the reasons I was excited to get you back on was having read about some recent research from Lucid Software. And now that highlights how miscommunication and unclear project requirements are still leading to significant productivity losses. We've got so much technology, so many communication tools now. It's a little surprising or unsurprising to anyone that works in the corporate world. But why do you think these issues persist despite the availability of these modern collaboration tools that keep claiming they're going to fix all these problems?
That was one of the key questions we examined in the survey. And that was 2,200 people, knowledge workers, who responded, along with 800 Agilists. And what we found is that there's a lot of challenges teams are facing today. And I think the core issue is that teams are dealing with increasingly complex and dynamic information, whether that's shifting priorities, intricate interdependencies, or trying to be responsive to continuous feedback loops. And that complexity makes transparency and clarity absolutely critical. And so while visual tools can significantly reduce miscommunication, they make information more actionable, for example. Think about being able to message a colleague directly while you're in a shared canvas, or how to visualize the dependencies that you might have connected across a project, or even mapping out how scope might change. We found that these tools alone aren't going to be a complete solution. What teams need today really is a combination of the right tool and the right approach. This will help them to build greater clarity and alignment and shared understanding. And that's where visual collaboration platforms like Lucid's become really critical. And we can help provide a structured framework for teams to work together more effectively. And that becomes a single source of truth for teams. When everybody can see and interact with the same visual representation of priorities or of decisions, it really dramatically reduces the kind of misalignments that we're seeing that lead to productivity losses.
I suspect both ourselves and every single person listening, no matter where they are in the world, have walked out of a meeting thinking, there goes another meeting that could have been an email. And one of the reasons I bring that up is your report mentions that 41% of workers say that it can take up to 3 hours to make a decision due to unproductive meetings. So what do you see as the key factors that are contributing to this inefficiency, and how can businesses better address it? Because I think we can all universally agree that the way we do meetings, it doesn't seem to be working.
Yeah, that number was really eye-opening for me. I imagine you too.
Yeah.
41%, it's really telling. And it shows that even though teams are meeting regularly, they're struggling to turn those discussions into clear decisions and action plans. And in the UK, this challenge is even more pronounced, with the data showing 46% of workers reporting similar delays. So when we dig into why this is happening, we can see some key factors at play. Teams often lack effective facilitation. They come to meetings unprepared. They struggle with misaligned goals. They use ineffective decision-making practices, or I've found, sometimes not any at all. And they don't have strong follow-through mechanisms. I think the good news is that effective facilitation can address these challenges head on. A skilled facilitator can invite focus, encourage engagement, and point the team towards actionable outcomes, whether they're meeting in person or virtually. And so I thought I might share an example from my own experience.
Yeah.
So recently at Lucid, we were using a feature called visual activities. We love this feature because it helps streamline decision-making processes. So I was participating in a cross-functional team meeting where we needed everybody's perspective on a key decision. So we used this virtual collaboration space to map out the decision criteria, and we spent just 4 minutes setting up an activity that collected every team member's input, and we did that in real time. The entire session was focused and inclusive, and it wrapped up in about 45 minutes, and a clear decision had been made. This could have been hours or days of back and forth discussion, but it came to a streamlined process where everybody felt heard, aligned, and ready to move forward. So this can highlight, I hope, for everybody how visual collaboration with a product like Lucid can be a powerful enabler for facilitators, for their teams. And when teams host their Agile events in such a virtual team space, it can create a seamless experience that transforms their discussions into actionable outcomes.
And it's so refreshing to hear a positive example there, because I think for so many people, redoing work due to miscommunication has been somewhat of a reoccurring theme over the last few years across the workplace. So I'm curious, what are the most common scenarios where you see this happening? And any other tips on how organizations could maybe prevent it from derailing projects too?
Yeah. That's one of the things I despise the most, is we spend our precious time and then we have to go back over it again. And the numbers from our Agile survey tell a really interesting story. While 73% of people say they have good visibility into their team's progress, we found that 30% of knowledge workers, or even more telling, 42% of those that are Agile practitioners, they point to unclear requirements and scope changes as the main reason that they end up redoing work. So that gap really highlights a disconnect between how visible we think our work is and how clearly we're actually communicating about it. And so it can be pretty straightforward. When communication breaks down, work slows down. And in Agile environments, we expect and we embrace change, but our success really depends on how quickly and clearly we communicate those changes to everybody involved. And so when teams struggle with effective communication, we see some predictable problems. Work starts to go in the wrong direction, teams duplicate efforts, and time and money get wasted. Ultimately, this leads to missed objectives and delayed deliveries that could have been avoided That's exactly why visual collaboration is so crucial, and where products like Lucid make a real difference. By providing a visual space for teams to work together, we can take everything to the next level, create transparency and alignment, and we can do that from each individual contributor on up to our executive stakeholders.
And I think it's important to highlight it's not all doom and gloom here, because agile practices have been shown to improve efficiency with, I think it was 68% of workers stating that they've seen tangible benefits as a result. So why do you think so many businesses are still hesitant to adapt agile, and what misconceptions could be holding them back? Because it seems a fairly sensible decision to make there. There's so much more value to be offered in this direction, but we keep going back to, hey, we've always done it this way.
I love this question. I've been involved in trying to help organizations achieve this for the last 22 years. And I understood it at the beginning because we were a bit of revolutionaries doing something that had never been heard of before. But today, there's a lot of reasons to make a change. And so I've noticed that business leaders often focus on the potential for disruption of Agile rather than focus on its benefits. So I'm going to share a parallel with you. I was thinking about this, how to explain this for a client the other day. And I used an example of taking my kids to the dentist. So my kids see a pediatric dentist. And I didn't really know what that meant, but I learned that these modern dentists actually tell us as parents, do not explain what's going to happen when we're working on a cavity with your kids. Don't explain it beforehand. Don't say certain words because the children are going to fixate on the scary parts. Instead, the dentist creates a really positive environment and my children all leave happy. And I never bias them by my generation's fear of going to the dentist's office. And had the dentist approached things differently, or had I approached things differently, my kids definitely would have resisted. And so I think we see something very similar with Agile adoption. When teams hear about Agile transformation, it can sound intimidating and disruptive and painful. But if we can introduce these principles gradually, maybe we start with something as simple as a brief daily check-in or a regular team reflection, then people tend to embrace these as natural and just good teamwork practices. So what's particularly interesting in the survey data is that there's a perception gap we found. Only 35% of executives and an even smaller 21% of entry-level employees believe Agile improves efficiency. And so this really highlights for me how important it is to demonstrate the tangible benefits of Agile through practical incremental changes rather than these big sweeping and painful transformations. And so I think this is where visual collaboration again comes in. It can be particularly valuable because when teams start to see their workflow, start to visibly track their progress, start to align on priorities in this kind of visible space, then we find that they can start to experience these benefits firsthand, and their initial hesitation often turns to genuine enthusiasm for this approach.
And I can almost hear penny drops going all around the world at the moment. And for anyone that is having those light bulb moments, and maybe they're new to Agile, but they want to start it, they're thinking of exploring it, but don't know where to start, where should they start? Are there any specific practices or areas where businesses can step into this a little bit easier and implement and deliver some quick wins to buy that adoption?
I often recommend teams start something called a retrospective, and it's a low-risk practice, but it can deliver tremendous results and value very quickly. So a well-run retrospective helps teams identify what's working and what needs improvement. And it's pretty straightforward to implement. At Lucid, we've got lots of templates to help teams pick this practice up, structure these sessions, and track their improvements over time. I think another great starting point could then be just a simple, what we call daily scrum. It's a simple concept. It's only a 15-minute meeting. It's collaborative where team members align on their priorities for the day and they surface potential roadblocks. I've even seen this at the nurse's station when I was visiting my mom in the hospital, like a simple sync about what's going to happen during that day. And it's a powerful practice that immediately improves collaboration and accountability. And I think teams can see quick wins from it. And I think once you have maybe these couple of practices started, you could introduce something larger like working together in iterations. That's a 2-week cycle that starts with planning and it ends with that reflection conversation I mentioned. And it helps to break your big initiatives down into these manageable chunks. We call these sprints in Scrum because it's this period of quick and rapid iteration. I think what's particularly valuable about this is it creates a natural feedback point every 2 weeks with your stakeholders. And we love that. In technology, we hate to work for months without hearing how our work is being received. So once we know we're going in the right directions, teams can course correct. So I think these are stepwise approaches, Neil, that help teams get started.
Completely agree with you. And I think resistance to change is often a barrier when introducing methodologies or tools or indeed technology. And it is seldom technology or methodology that is to blame. It is the corporate culture that needs changing. So how can leaders overcome that resistance to change and better encourage teams to embrace these agile practices that we're talking about today?
I love that you mentioned culture. I think that's so crucial. I've spent, as I mentioned, these past 22 years helping teams adopt agile practices. And one thing I've learned is that while change can feel daunting, resistance will typically melt away when a team starts to see examples of success. Even if it's on the team next door, they want that, right? They want that success. And so one of my most effective approaches over the years has been connecting curious professionals with active agile teams. And I facilitated hundreds of these connections where experienced teams openly share their way of working and answer questions with those that are just starting that journey. With this virtual collaboration that we've been talking about, it can make this introduction even more accessible. So today I can have teams, quote, visit and observe successful agile practices in action from anywhere. Just observing online and having that interview over something like Zoom. And this really helps reduce skepticism and it builds confidence. And so while I found it particularly effective to simply ask teams to then go run an experiment, try something that they learned for a few weeks and reflect on how to improve it. That's at the heart of Agile. And it's a low pressure approach that can lead to lasting positive change. So I think it's really exciting that we have tools that weren't available before. With a visual collaboration platform, teams can have access to templates and dashboards and clear blueprints that have been proven and authored by people such as myself and other colleagues. And this sets them up for success instead of starting from scratch, as many of us did. They can begin with these proven approaches, adapt them to their needs, and this will significantly accelerate their agile adoption journey.
And we started our conversation today talking about collaboration tools and how they should play a key role in improving decision-making and communication. There has been a few mistakes and missteps along the way, but what should businesses be looking for when selecting tools to ensure that they can support agile principles and enhance team efficiency? There are so many different ones out there, a whole smorgasbord of tools, so to speak, but where should they begin in selecting those right tools?
Well, I have my bias, of course. I love getting to work with just an incredible development team that can tackle the ideas that I can bring from our clients or from those 22 years of working with teams. So I do think I'm qualified to answer that question without bias, though. So I think there's several critical factors that folks could consider. First and foremost, I think you want tools that support how an agile team actually works. And I think they need to enable adaptability and quick decision-making. Teams are distributed today across time zones and regions, so they need a platform that's flexible where everybody can contribute and iterate visually together, whether they're working together in real time or they're working asynchronously. So that's becoming more and more important. And I think another crucial consideration should be how well a tool integrates with your existing system. So at Lucid, for example, we offer over 120 different integrations with industry-leading apps because we understand that your team is going to need that visual collaboration to fit seamlessly into your daily workflow. And you don't want a tool that's going to create a new silo or force your teams to constantly switch between applications. And so I think flexibility might be the most important thing then. Your tools should adapt to how your teams work, not the other way around. And your team should be able to customize that workspace and their workflows to match their specific needs and practices. So when teams have tools that check these boxes, supporting their real-time collaboration, integrating smoothly with their existing systems, offering them the flexibility I've described, I think they're better equipped to make quick decisions and maintain effective communication, regardless of whether and where they're working. And I think we would see a very different survey if that was the case.
If we were to look ahead now as we reach the end of our conversation today, how do you see workplace productivity and collaboration evolving? And again, what role do you envision Agile and tools like Lucid Software playing in helping to shape this new improved future of work where we banish those mistakes from the past and frustrations once and for all?
Oh, this is one of my favorite kind of questions. I really wish I had a job where my title was futurist. I love to dream about what might be possible. So looking ahead, I think we're witnessing a fundamental shift in how teams work together. I think visual collaboration on a shared canvas, it's not just going to replace our traditional office suites of the past. I think it's becoming a natural way for hybrid and distributed teams to work together. And I think these intuitive workspaces, they'll transform how teams brainstorm, strategize, and plan in real time, while also supporting asynchronous collaboration. And so what's particularly exciting is how they're bringing this planning and execution step together into one place, integrating seamlessly with other tools that we're using each day. So I think Lucid's leading this evolution by creating visual workspaces that go beyond just looking good. We're building spaces that work smarter. These spaces surface insights to teams. They streamline workflows. They give us proactive suggestions, and they help teams make decisions and execute faster. And I love the most how these shared canvases can truly unite teams regardless of their location. Team members can embed live data, interact with visuals, and track progress in a way that feels dynamic and natural. And I noticed that the principles that have made Agile so successful, like transparency and continuous improvement, they're guiding this evolution, Neil. They're making collaboration more accessible and impactful for everyone. And thinking about the future, we're already seeing AI become more integrated into our tools. We're seeing enhanced brainstorming and decision-making capabilities, and soon we'll have intelligent automation that's going to help teams stay ahead of the rapidly changing demands that they face. But maybe more importantly, I see collaboration evolving beyond just the tools. And I'm going to use that word you used, Neil. It's becoming a fundamental pillar of organizational culture, collaboration. It's the foundation for how we're going to operate and thrive in the future. And for me, this isn't just about having better technology. It's about transforming how we work together to build that future faster.
Well, thank you so much for returning to the podcast today and sharing pure gold again, invaluable insights. I can hear so many light bulb moments going off around the world. I'd love for people listening to check in with me or yourself there and let me know what you're thinking, what you're going to be doing differently and how you're going to be adopting some of these techniques and anything that you might have learned along the way. So thank you for starting this conversation and sharing your insights. But before I let you go, I want you to leave one final gift for everyone listening, and that is a song that we can add to our Spotify playlist, something that means something to you. So what song would you like to add to the list and why?
Well, Neil, it's going to be Beautiful Day by U2.
Oh,
one of my favorite bands. And I have to say, I have begun many mornings with this song first in my queue. And when I hear the chorus, it really hits like a sunbeam breaking through rain clouds. So I would say everybody should take counsel from Bono and his lyrics. It's a beautiful day. Don't let it get away. Now, I know it's in your list. I checked, number 342. So give it a listen, everybody.
Oh, man, I cannot tell you how hard it is for me not to burst into song and sing that to you right now. But I'm showing a little bit of self-restraint and I will spare everyone listening from that. But before I let you go, for anyone listening wanting to find out more information, we've referenced the report today. We've talked about Lucid Software. Where would you like to point everyone listening?
Well, folks can always find me on LinkedIn. It's Bryan with a Y, Bryan Stallings. And I'd also say I've been working just this last couple of months on a blog and a video series about Agile with my colleague Jessica Gustales. And so they can find that. It's called All Access Agile. And it's available on Lucid. And you can always find Lucid at lucid.co, not C-O-M, lucid.co, our website, and check us out. Neil, thank you for your time. It's been fabulous.
No, thank you. Thank you for leaving a great song. And also, you dropped some pretty big stats in the interview today. 41% of workers state it takes up to 3 hours to make a decision due to unproductive meetings. But Agile could be the solution. 68% of workers who use Agile practices state that it improves efficiency. And 45% believe adopting new tools, collaboration tools, could reduce time needed to make decisions. The answer seems so obvious to me, but again, I'd love everybody listening to share with me their experiences. But more than anything, Bryan, thank you for coming back on and starting this conversation once again. Really appreciate your time, and a pleasure as always.
Thank you, Neil. I look forward to our next opportunity.
Wow, I think we've broken a record today. We had an amazing, valuable conversation about tech in business without even mentioning artificial intelligence. I think that alone shows how critical workplace collaboration, agile thinking, and productivity strategies are so important for modern organisations. And Bryan has given us some powerful insights today into why businesses continue to struggle with inefficiency, despite having all the tools at their disposal. And the data is clear too. Miscommunication and unnecessary meetings, these things are slowing companies down. But on the flip side of that, agile principles and visual collaboration tools like Lucid can help teams work smarter, not harder. But as we've discussed today, technology alone will not solve the problem. Leaders must be willing to challenge outdated behaviours, encourage experimentation, and create environments where teams can align and make decisions faster. And that's going to require an upgrade to corporate culture. So what do you think? Is your workplace stuck in a cycle of inefficiency? Or are you already adopting agile principles and working better and have come through the other side of that journey? I'd love to hear your thoughts, whether you just want to leave a few comments or you'd like to join me on the podcast and share your story. Please email me now, techblogwriter@outlook.com, LinkedIn, X, Instagram, just at Neil C. Hughes. I'm genuinely curious on what you come back at me with there. So remember, send me a message. Don't just follow. Follow and send me a message, and we'll keep this conversation going. So much to think about there. I'm going to be back again tomorrow with another guest and another topic. I can't promise I won't say AI tomorrow, though. Seems part of the course now. But please, join me again tomorrow, and we'll find out together. Speak with you all then. Bye for now.